The red hoodie glowed under the sodium light, a stain against the night smiling at me like it knew I'd never make it home. July 1996, I was 24, fresh out of the army, my duffel bag rattling in the trunk of my beat-up Geo Metro, stationed at Fort Hood, Texas. I'd counted the hours until I could drive back to Wisconsin, my real life waiting like a promise. That night I was wired, too restless to sleep, pacing my barracks until midnight. The desk sergeant, a grizzled bastard, made me wait until 2:45 a.m. for my sign-off, his rounds a final jab at my patience. By 3:30 I was on the road, the interstate stretching into the dark, my boombox blaring Springsteen to keep me awake. Feel that rush? The open road calling, but your eyes begging to close. Adrenaline carried me through the first hour, Dallas's lights a blur in my rear view. But past Denton, exhaustion hit like a brick, my lids drooping, the white lines dancing. I needed a break, just a quick nap until dawn. A picnic stop sign glowed ahead. Not a rest area with bathrooms, just a patch of gravel with tables and a trash can. The kind of place you forget by morning. I pulled in, the Geo's tires crunching, and stepped out, the Texas heat clinging, despite the hour. 3 cars and 2 semis idled nearby, their drivers invisible. I tossed a soda can, my eyes grazing a faded flyer on the trash bin. Missing persons, faces blurred by time. I didn't linger, too tired to care. See that flyer? Now its edges curling, whispering warnings you'll wish you'd read. Let me take you back. At 18, I hitchhiked once, thumb out on a Nebraska back road. A trucker picked me up, his grin too wide, his questions too personal. I jumped out at a gas station, heart pounding, swearing I'd never trust the road again. Back in the Geo, I cracked the windows, the air thick with dust and heat, and turned up the boombox, its static-laced tunes a thin shield. I reclined the seat, my body sinking, and was out in minutes. A jolt woke me. 5, maybe 10 minutes later, the car trembling like a hand had brushed it. I squinted into the dark, my pulse spiking, but saw nothing, just the picnic tables, silhouettes. Tiredness pulled me back, my mind blaming nerves. Then it came again, a tug at the passenger door, metal scraping, deliberate. I bolted upright, my breath sharp, scanning the windows. Empty. The night was still, the boombox droning low. I cranked the volume, my hands shaking, and lay back, eyes fixed on the ceiling. Ever feel the dark watching, waiting for you to blink? Minutes later, the car rocked hard, the door handle rattling. I sat up, and there he was, a man pressed against the passenger window, his red hoodie glowing under the sodium light, hood up, face shadowed. His smile, wide and wrong, gleamed, but his eyes were hidden, black pits in the dark. I was 5'6", fresh from combat training, but fear gripped me, raw and primal. "You want something?" I yelled, my voice cracking, army bravado kicking in. He didn't move, just stared, that smile frozen. Young and stupid, I flung the door open, stepping out, fists clenched. "Come back, I'll end you." He turned, slow, and walked to the picnic tables, his green tennis shoes scuffing the gravel, something glinting at his side. A blade, maybe a machete. I scrambled back into the Geo, heart hammering, and peeled out, the engine whining. 10 miles later, exhaustion returned, my body betraying me. Another picnic stop sign beckoned, and I cursed North Texas for its lack of rest areas. I pulled in, backing into a spot for a quick escape, the lot near empty save 1 car. Feel that trap tightening, the road itself conspiring against you. I locked the doors, cracked the windows, and restarted the boombox, its music a frail anchor. Sleep took me fast, but a thud on the driver's window snapped me awake, my body jolting. Nothing. I stepped out, dumb, reckless, my military ego roaring. But the lot was deserted, the air heavy with silence. Back in the car, I locked up, too wired to sleep, eyes closed but mind racing. A prickle ran down my neck like a gaze boring through me. I opened my eyes, and he was there. Red hoodie, green shoes, smiling, 6'2" or taller. His frame skeletal under the sweatshirt. The glint flashed again, a machete's edge catching the light. See him now, his smile a promise, his blade a vow? I lunged for the door, fumbling the lock, but the Geo's cheap mechanism jammed. He stepped back, still smiling, 30 feet away now, unhurried. I grabbed my baseball bat from the back seat, yelling, "Come on!" Words I didn't mean. Fear, drowning my bravado. He advanced, slow, deliberate, when headlights slashed the dark, a yellow van screeching to a stop. Two more figures, hooded, leaped out, their shapes blurring in my panic. My keys were in the ignition and I floored it. The Geo lurching forward, tires spitting gravel. The van's men were close, the red-hooded man closer, but I didn't stall, the road swallowing me as I hit I-35. I didn't stop until Oklahoma, 20 miles north, my hands trembling at a gas station pump. In the restroom, a flyer caught my eye. Identical to the first, its text now searing. Missing persons. A suspect described as 6 tall, red hoodie, blue jeans, green shoes. My blood ran cold, the machete's glint flashing in my mind. Daylight broke, and I drove to Wisconsin wide awake, the flyers' faces burned into me. I never called the number, never spoke of it, shame and fear sealing my lips. See those faces now, their eyes accusing, their fates tied to your silence? I live in North Texas now, passing those picnic stops daily, their gravel lots unchanged. The red hoodie haunts me, his smile a ghost in my rear view, the machete's shine a warning I can't shake. I keep the bat in my car, its grip worn, a relic of a night I escaped but never left behind. The road stretches on, but I don't stop, not there, not ever. The fire alarm screamed through my apartment, a piercing wail that tore me from sleep and into a nightmare I couldn't escape. It was 8 a.m., a Monday morning gone wrong, the air thick with panic as neighbors fled our burning building. I grabbed my keys, wallet, laptop, whatever I could carry, and stumbled into the chaos, my heart pounding with the fear of losing everything. The flames had devoured the 3rd floor, licking at my own, and by the time I reached my car, I knew home was gone. But the real horror wasn't the fire. It was what waited in the apartment above my new refuge, watching, hungering, hidden behind the blare of a TV show called Power Slap. The fire left my life in ashes. My apartment was uninhabitable, its walls charred, its memories reduced to soot. The landlord promised repairs, but it would take weeks, maybe months. I scoured ads for a new place, my savings dwindling, my desperation growing. Hotels were my only option. Their sterile rooms a cold comfort until I spotted a flyer at a diner. Tenant needed for 1-bedroom apartment, urgent, cheap rent. The address was unfamiliar, a rundown part of town where streetlights flickered and stray dogs roamed. I called the number, my voice trembling with hope, and the owner, a gruff man named Carl, told me to come by the next morning. I didn't care about the details. I needed a roof, a bed, a chance to rebuild. The building was a relic, its brick facade crumbling, its hallways dim and smelling of mildew. Carl showed me the apartment, a cramped 1-bedroom with a sagging couch, a tiny kitchen, and a bathroom where the tiles peeled like old skin. It wasn't much, but it was mine, signed on a lease tailored to my situation. As I moved in, I saw a man climbing the stairs, his frame massive, his footsteps heavy. He was in his 40s, I guessed, with a bald head and eyes that didn't meet mine. Carl mentioned only 2 other tenants, one on the 1st floor, another above me. I assumed the man was my upstairs neighbor, a loner like me, and thought nothing more of it. That first night I lay in bed, staring at the cracked ceiling, unaware that the walls were hiding a monster. Sleep was elusive, my mind replaying the fire, the loss, the uncertainty. But as I drifted off, a sound jolted me awake. The muffled roar of a television coming from above. It was Power Slap, a reality show I'd seen ads for, its announcer's voice booming through the thin ceiling. I groaned, assuming my neighbor was a night owl, a fan who'd binge an episode or two before bed. But the noise didn't stop. Hour after hour, the same theme music looped, the same cheers, the same commentary, relentless and maddening. I tossed and turned, my pillow no match for the sound, my exhaustion deepening with each cycle. By morning, I was a wreck, my eyes bloodshot, my focus shattered. The next day was a blur, my job at the office a slog of typos and missed deadlines. I told myself the neighbor would tire of the show, that tonight would be quiet. But as I collapsed, into bed, the TV roared to life again, louder, more insistent. Power Slap again, its rhythm a cruel mockery of my need for rest. I pounded on the ceiling, shouting for silence, but the noise didn't falter. My frustration grew, a knot of anger tightening in my chest. I called Carl, but he dismissed me, saying he didn't meddle in tenant disputes. "Sort it out yourself," he grunted, and hung up. I didn't know then that the sound was a mask, hiding something far worse than a loud neighbor. The third night was the same, then the fourth, each worse than the last. My sleep was stolen, my sanity fraying. I saw the man again, lumbering up the stairs, his bulk filling the hallway. I called out, asking if he was the one upstairs, but he didn't answer, just vanished into the shadows. I decided to confront him, to demand he stop. The next morning before work, I climbed the creaking stairs to his door, my knuckles rapping hard. No answer. I knocked again, then again, waiting half an hour, but the apartment was silent, as if no one lived there. I left, defeated, but vowed to try again that night. After work, I marched upstairs, my anger overriding my fear. I banged on the door, shouting, "Open up, I know you're in there." Still nothing. The TV blared below, Power Slap's theme music seeping through the floor, a taunt that drove me to the edge. I paced the hall, my fist clenched, my mind racing. Maybe he was deaf or drunk or mocking me. I noticed an open kitchen window at the end of the corridor, its frame rusted, its glass smeared with grime. I leaned out, hoping to call him from there, to break through the noise. What I saw through that window stopped my heart, a vision so vile it burned into my soul. He sat on a sagging couch, his massive frame hunched, the TV's glow casting flickering shadows across his face. In his hand was a human leg, raw and bloody, its flesh torn where his teeth had ripped it free. He chewed slowly, deliberately, his eyes fixed on the screen, Power Slap's cheers a sick accompaniment to his meal. Beside him hung a body, limbless, its torso dripping blood onto the floor, pooling in a dark, viscous stain. A knife, long and jagged, lay on the table, its blade crusted with red. My stomach heaved, bile rising as I gripped the windowsill, my legs trembling. This wasn't a man. This was a beast, a cannibal, feasting in plain sight. I don't know how I didn't scream. My body moved on instinct, pulling me back from the window, my breath shallow and ragged. I stumbled downstairs, my hands shaking as I fumbled with my keys, locking my door as if it could keep that horror out. I curled up in bed, the TV's noise now a sinister chant, a reminder of what lurked above. I didn't sleep, couldn't think, my mind trapped in the image of that leg, that body, that knife. By morning, I packed what little I had, my movements, Frantic, my fear a living thing. I called Carl from a hotel, my voice hollow, telling him I was leaving, hinting at what I'd seen. He grunted, uninterested, and I wondered if he knew, if he'd always known. I checked into a motel, its neon, sign buzzing like a warning. I didn't call the police, didn't dare. What could I say? That I'd seen a monster through a window? That power slap was the soundtrack to murder? I was a coward, I know, but fear had me in its grip, and I let it win. Every night I dream of that apartment, of blood dripping on the floor, of his eyes turning to meet mine through the glass. I don't know if he's still there, if others have seen what I saw, if the police ever came. But I know this. Some evils hide in plain sight, behind the noise of a TV, and I'll never feel safe again. The cabin perched on a ridge above the Maumee River, its wooden walls creaking under the weight of a summer night in 1972. A yellow security light buzzed in the yard, casting a sickly glow that turned the Ohio wilderness into a dreamlike haze. Inside I lay in bed, a boy of 9 lulled by the river's distant murmur. But that night the darkness brought something else. 2 figures at our door, their pleas echoing with a terror I'd never forget. I was 9, maybe 10, when I spent that summer with my grandparents in their cabin, a rough-hewn retreat in northeast Ohio. It was their escape from the world, a place where the nearest neighbors were miles away, weekenders who vanished by Monday. The closest town was a 10-mile drive, hospitals even farther. My grandfather wasn't like other grandpas. A World War II veteran, he'd come back from the Pacific changed, his mind scarred by battles he never spoke of. After the war, he joined the Air Force, staying away for years, leaving family stories of a man broken and healing in solitude. He returned, but not whole. His eyes held a restless edge, his voice sharp with warnings of doom. Middle East wars, gas shortages, Watergate, the Kennedys' deaths. He trusted no one, certain the banks would collapse, the Russians would invade, or riots would burn the Yan world. His fears shifted weekly, a litany of threats only he could see. He prepared for the end, stocking our cabin like a bunker, shelves of canned food, water jugs, generators, fuel cans, gold bars hidden somewhere secret. Firearms lay buried, in the yard ammo stashed in locked boxes. To him, they were coming for our stuff and we had to be ready. I was just a kid, wide-eyed and half-believing, caught between his paranoia and the innocence of youth. The cabin sat across from a 2-lane highway, its gentle curves offering glimpses of the Maumee River's silver flow. But half a mile down, the road twisted into a sharp bend ending at a narrow bridge over a creek. That curve was cursed. Every year cars skidded off, leaving wreckage and sometimes bodies. We'd hear the distant screech of tires, the crunch of metal, and I'd wander down the next morning, curious, wondering if the drivers were okay. Feel the night stillness, the river's whisper lulling you, but something stirs beyond the light. The cabin's safety is a lie, and danger knocks. One humid night I woke to a pounding at the door, a frantic rhythm that jolted me from sleep. My room was steps from the entrance, my grandfather's down the hall. I stumbled out of bed, heart racing as he appeared, his face hard, a 1911 pistol gleaming in his hand. He thrust a shotgun into my arms, its weight cold and heavy, whispering, "Stay sharp." I clutched it, my small hands trembling as he peered through the window's curtain. The yellow security light bathed the yard in a ghostly glow, making everything look warped, unreal. I peeked out, my breath catching. 2 figures stood on the porch's lower steps, a man and a woman, their faces half hidden in shadow. They'd knocked and stepped back as if sensing the danger inside. Grandfather cracked the door, pistol raised, his voice a growl. The woman's words spilled out, a desperate flood of grief and fear. "There's been an accident," she gasped, her voice cracking. "Down at the curve. People are hurt. Bad. Please call an ambulance, come help them." Her hair was matted, dark streaks glinting. Blood, I realized, my stomach twisting. She wore ripped jeans, a fringed suede jacket, like the hippie's grandfather despised. The man beside her was silent, his biker vest patched and worn, his feet bare on the rough wood. Bare feet? I frowned, unease creeping up my spine. He didn't speak, didn't move, just stared at the porch as if my grandfather's gun meant nothing. Grandfather's hatred for hippies was legend, and he saw them as proof of society's decay. "Calm down," he barked. But she only grew louder, pleading, her hands wringing. They argued, her voice rising to a wail, his cutting through with threats. "Get off my property or I'll shoot you both," he roared, stepping onto the porch. I followed, the shotgun heavy, my bare feet cold against the planks. The couple retreated, the woman still begging, the man trailing her like a shadow. Under the yellow light, I saw it again. His feet, pale and bare, untouched by the gravel path. I shivered, unable to name the wrongness. We watched them vanish toward the highway, their forms swallowed by the night. I hadn't heard a crash, no screech of tires. Something felt off, but I couldn't grasp it. Close your eyes. See their faces in the yellow light, her blood-streaked hair, his bare feet. The river hums, but their pleas echo, unnatural. Back inside, Grandfather sat me down, his voice low, his eyes glinting with certainty. "They're lying," he said. "Druggies probably looking to rob us, maybe worse. You heard about the Manson murders? That's what they're like." The Manson killings, 4 years fresh, had gripped him, a grim fascination he'd shared in late-night rants. I nodded, but doubt gnawed at me. "What about the blood in her hair?" I asked, my voice small. "Fake," he snapped. "A trick, to get inside." I suggested calling the state police just to be sure, but he scoffed. Cops were part of the system he distrusted, as likely to betray us as help. We went back to bed, but sleep eluded me. Her voice, his silence, those bare feet, they haunted me, a puzzle I couldn't solve. Morning came, the sun burning away the night's chill. I stayed close to the cabin, too spooked to check the curve as I usually did. But by mid-morning, sirens wailed and police cars lined the highway's edge, their lights flashing red and blue. Curiosity won out. I grabbed my shoes and grandmother, sensing my unease, walked with me. An ambulance was pulling away as we reached the scene, its siren fading. The guardrail was crumpled, shards of glass and metal littering the road. A tree bore a deep gouge, bark stripped raw, and a mangled motorcycle lay in the ditch, its frame twisted like a broken toy. Searchers combed the wooded creek below, their voices low. We overheard fragments, a man dead, his girlfriend found half a mile away clinging to life. A single motorcycle had lost control, slamming into the tree. A woman, sobbing to a trooper, clutched her hands, asking about boots. "My son's boots," she cried, her voice breaking. "He just bought them. The crash threw them off. He never wore a helmet." I begged him. The trooper murmured comfort, saying her son hadn't suffered, killed instantly on impact. My blood turned to ice. Boots, bare feet, blood in her hair. The pieces clicked, a horrifying truth dawning. The couple at our door, they were the victims, already dead, their pleas a ghostly echo. Feel your heart stop as the truth sinks in, the yellow light now a veil between worlds. They stood there dead, begging for help we didn't give. We walked home in silence, my mind reeling. I didn't speak to the searchers, didn't tell them about the night before. I couldn't. The words wouldn't form, my thoughts tangled in fear and disbelief. For days I was numb, replaying their faces, her blood, his silence. Who had she wanted us to help? Were they trapped, wandering, seeking aid their bodies no longer needed? I overheard my grandparents once late at night, crafting a story to ease their guilt. The man didn't die right away, grandmother said softly. They were on drugs, stumbled here, then collapsed later. Grandfather grunted agreement, but his voice lacked conviction. We never spoke of it again, and our summers at the cabin grew rare, the ridge too heavy with memories. That night changed me. I see the yellow light in my dreams, hear her voice, see his bare feet. The Maumee River still flows, but its murmur carries their cries, a reminder that the line between life and death is thinner than I ever knew. I wonder even now, if they're still out there, knocking on doors that won't open, lost in a night that never ends. The waves whispered secrets as I stepped onto the beach, but the girl in white stood silent, her presence a chill that pierced the night. I was a man tethered to my past, living in an old house by the sea, its creaking walls a gift from my grandmother. The air was heavy with salt and memory, the kind of place where time seemed to pause. I couldn't sleep that night, my mind restless, so I wandered out seeking solace in the rhythm of the tide. But there she was, a figure in a white dress, sitting where the waves kissed the shore, her long black hair swaying like a veil. I thought she was lost, broken, human. But what I saw in her eyes would haunt me forever, a truth that blurred the line between ghost and grief. The house was a relic, its paint peeling, its floors groaning under my weight. I'd inherited it years ago, a haven for my new life with Gabriella, my fiancé, and Derek, our son. Gabriella was my anchor, her laughter a balm for my rough edges, her pregnancy a promise of brighter days. Derek, 8 and stubborn, filled the house with his arguments about hiking versus beach trips, his voice a constant reminder of why I fought to be better. We'd been together 5 years, our love sealed with a ring and a future I could almost touch. But the house demanded upkeep, its pipes leaking, its windows rattling, and that night, the weight of it all drove me from bed, my bare feet seeking the cool sand outside. The beach was deserted, the moon a pale sliver casting shadows that danced with the waves. I walked, my jacket flapping in the breeze, the sea's murmur a lullaby I didn't trust. Then I saw her, 50 yards away, her white dress glowing faintly, her body half soaked where the water lapped her legs. She stared at the ocean unmoving, her posture heavy with a sorrow I recognized. I'd seen that look in the mirror after hard days when life felt too much. I thought she was young, maybe 20, a runaway or a heartbroken soul seeking escape. I kept my distance, my steps soft, not wanting to intrude. But something about her stillness, her silence felt wrong, like the air itself held its breath. I returned home, the image of her lingering, a puzzle I couldn't solve. The next morning I told Gabriella over breakfast, my coffee cooling as I described the girl. Maybe she's grieving, Gabriella said, her brow furrowed, her hand resting on her belly. Or maybe she's a ghost, she teased, her laugh breaking the tension. I smiled, but the idea stuck, a seed of doubt that grew with each passing night. I saw her again the next evening in the same spot, her dress clinging to her wet legs, her hair a dark curtain hiding her face. I drank alone that night, my whiskey burning, my eyes drawn to her through the window. She didn't move, didn't flinch, just stared at the sea, a statue carved from despair. Days blurred into weeks, the girl a constant in my nightly walks. I told Gabriella each time, her concern deepening. She might need help, she said one evening, her voice soft but firm. You should talk to her. I hesitated, the thought of approaching her filling me with unease. What if she was dangerous? What if she wasn't human? But Gabriella's words echoed, and I saw Derek's face, his trust in me a weight I couldn't ignore. I had to try, for them, for the man I wanted to be. That night I stepped onto the beach, my heart pounding, unaware that I was walking into a nightmare. She was there, as always, her silhouette stark against the moonlit waves. I approached, my boots sinking into the sand, my breath visible in the cool air. "Hey," I called, my voice unsteady. "You okay?" She didn't respond, her head tilted slightly as if listening to something I couldn't hear. I moved closer, 10 feet away, and tried again. "Do you need help?" She turned, slow and deliberate, and I saw her face for the first time. Her lips were cracked, her skin pale as bone, her eyes sunken with dark circles that seemed to swallow the light. She wasn't alive, I thought, my blood turning cold, but then she stared and I saw pain, not death. I froze, my words caught in my throat. She kept staring, her gaze piercing, as if she saw through me, into the parts I hid even from myself. I shook my head, forcing a smile. "I'm just checking," I said, turning to leave, my heart racing. But then I felt it. Her hand, cold and strong, grabbing my ankle, her nails digging into my skin. I stumbled, falling to my knees, and she pulled, dragging me toward the water. Her face was blank, emotionless, her eyes empty as the sea itself. I kicked, my panic surging, but she was relentless, her strength unnatural. This is no ghost, I thought, but it's not human either. The waves swallowed my legs, icy and cruel, as I fought to break free. Her nails tore my skin, blood mixing with the salt, and I saw the knife in her other hand, its blade glinting under the moon. I lunged, my hands finding her throat, my fear a primal roar. I squeezed, her body thrashing, her eyes wide but unseeing. The knife fell, sinking into the surf, and she went limp, her weight pulling me under. I gasped, crawling back to shore, my chest heaving, my mind a storm of horror. I killed her, I thought, but she wasn't alive, was she? I ran home, my clothes soaked, my hands trembling as I dialed Gabriella. She calmed me, her voice a lifeline, telling me it was self-defense, that no ghost could bleed. But the next morning, police swarmed the beach, their lights flashing like accusations. Gabriella arrived, holding me as I confessed, my tears falling freely. The girl was Sarah, they said, a young woman rescued from abuse but broken by it. Her mind fractured, her hatred of men a trigger for violence. She'd been living on the beach unseen, her trauma driving her to that final act. I was arrested, my guilt a chain, but the court saw self-defense, releasing me after months that felt like years. Now every year I return to that beach, flowers in hand, laying them where Sarah died. Gabriella waits for me, her love unwavering. Derek by her side, his hiking dreams a reminder of life's persistence. But I see Sarah in the waves, her face pale, her eyes accusing, her voice whispering my name. I don't know if she was ghost or girl, but I know this. Some wounds never heal, and some sins, even forgiven, mark you forever. The jungle exhaled a warning, its breath hot and sharp, but we marched in, cameras ready, blind to the claws waiting in the dark. My name is Angela Parker, a final-year journalism student, burning with ambition to make my mark. Our class was tasked with filming a documentary in a nearby jungle, split into 5 teams, each chasing a unique story for top marks. My team, Jonathan, Carlos, Grace, Sammy, Martha, Kevin, and 2 teachers, Mr. Andrew and Mr. Joan, drew the southern sector, a tangled maze of vines and secrets. Our topic, the dwindling wildlife. Animals vanishing as human axes carved their homes to dust. 7 days to film, 2 to edit. A tight window, but we were hungry for glory. Feel that pulse of ambition driving you into a place that doesn't want you. We set out a day early, the 9-hour drive a grueling slog through dusty roads, our van rattling with gear, cameras, tents, food, water. Jonathan, our leader, cracked jokes to keep spirits high, while Sammy clung to Kevin, her boyfriend, their whispers a soft hum. Carlos, ever the skeptic, fiddled with his lens, and Grace sketched storyboards, her pen scratching. Martha, quiet but sharp, checked our supplies, while Mr. Andrew and Mr. Joan debated logistics up front. The jungle loomed as we arrived, its canopy a green fortress, the air thick and dry, unnatural for its lush heart. My skin prickled, a warning I brushed off as fatigue. See the jungle now? Its shadows shifting, alive with eyes you can't meet. Let me pause here. At 16, I camped with my cousin in a state park. A deer crashed through our sight at midnight, its eyes wild, fleeing something we never saw. That primal fear of nature turning predator stayed with me. We pitched tents in a clearing, the ground spongy underfoot, the heat pressing like a hand. Kevin frowned, his voice low. The animals feel off. No birds, no rustle. Carlos scoffed. What animals? I haven't seen a bug. His laugh broke the tension, but I nodded uneasy. I'd spotted birds on the drive, darting erratically, like they were running from a storm. Sammy whispered, "We should leave." Martha snapped, "Why? Scared of bugs?" I backed Sammy, the jungle's silence too loud, but Mr. Andrew cut us off. "We start filming tomorrow, eat, sleep, move on." Mr. Joan echoed him, retreating to his tent, his dismissal final. Jonathan muttered, "This is crap." But we obeyed, the teacher's authority a chain we couldn't break. Dinner was silent, our canned beans tasteless, the jungle's heat stealing our appetite. We crawled into tents, the canvas stifling, and I lay awake, the absence of night sounds deafening. A scream shattered the dark. Mr. Andrew, gone to relieve himself minutes before. We scrambled out, flashlights slicing the night, and found him. In a clearing, 2 tigers tearing him apart, their jaws slick with blood, snarling over his limbs like a prize. His eyes wide and glassy stared at nothing, his scream frozen in death. See him now, broken, the jungle claiming its toll. We froze, breath shallow, then bolted for the tents, instinct screaming run. More growls echoed, closer, the ground trembling under heavy paws. "The cars!" Jonathan yelled, and we veered, piling into our van, doors slamming, locks clicking. My heart stopped. Martha was gone. "Where's she?" I gasped, my voice thin. Sammy, trembling, said, "Maybe the other car." A tiger lunged, its claws raking the hood, the metal shrieking. 2 more appeared, their eyes glinting, circling like specters. Carlos's voice shook. "They'll break in." Martha's scream pierced the night, raw and desperate, from the tents. She'd hidden there alone. I choked. "We have to help." But Sammy's sob cut through. "We can't. They're everywhere." She was right. Survival crushed our courage. Martha's cry a wound we couldn't heal. The tigers paused, their circling slowing, then sat, staring, their gazes heavy as stone. Half an hour dragged, our breaths loud in the van's stale air. Carlos whispered, "Let's drive." Sammy protested, "Our gear's in the tents." He snapped, "Life or stuff, Sam?" I nodded, fear overriding logic, but hesitated. "None of us can drive." Carlos, eyes down, admitted, "I can. I lied about not wanting to drive here." We agreed, no choice left. And he started the engine, its roar waking the tigers. They charged, claws flashing, but Carlos floored it. The van, lurching, tires spitting dirt. I glanced back. The other car with Jonathan, Mr. Joan, and Grace followed, tigers snapping at its wheels. Feel that terror, the jungle chasing you, its hunger endless? 15 minutes later, the growls faded, the jungle releasing us. We stopped an hour out, safe, our breaths ragged. Jonathan's car pulled up 10 minutes behind, but only 3 figures sat inside. Jonathan, Mr. Joan, Grace. Sammy's voice broke. "Where's Kevin?" Mr. Joan's face was stone. "We couldn't risk it." Grace, voice hollow, said Kevin, had crept to the tents when the tigers calmed, but they fled when the beast stirred, leaving him. Sammy collapsed, her sobs a knife in the silence. The drive back was mute. 10 hours of wind and grief. Carlos dropping us at our homes, his eyes avoiding ours. At college, the director summoned us, his office cold. 2 others from another team had faced similar attacks, their stories mirroring ours. Days later, news broke. A fire ravaged the jungle, fire crews battling its spread. The tigers, starved by fleeing prey, had turned on us, the director said. But the worst came last. Jonathan had filmed it all. Mr. Andrews' death, Martha's, screams our flight, and submitted it, retitling our documentary Predators. See that footage now, blood and terror framed for glory, a betrayal sharper than claws. My stomach churned, his ambition a poison I couldn't unsee. The jungle's fire burned on, but Jonathan's act scorched deeper, a scar I carry still. I walk past forests now, their edges dark, and hear Martha scream, see Kevin's shadow, the camera's cold eye watching. The southern village glowed under the October sun, its dirt roads alive with the hum of sitars and the scent of sandalwood. In 2019, I arrived alone, a young woman from a South Asian country, seeking freedom for my birthday. The locals called it a hippie paradise, a haven of peace. But as I stepped into the secluded guest house, its flimsy door creaking under my touch, a shadow of unease crept over me, whispering that safety was a fragile illusion. I come from a place where solo travel for a woman is a gamble, where every step outside demands vigilance. But 2019 had tested me. Heartbreak, loss, a year that left me raw. By October, I felt a spark of healing, a need to reclaim myself. My birthday loomed, and I craved escape. Friends spoke of a village down south, a bohemian retreat where travelers from across the globe danced under starlit skies. My brother, who'd visited before, convinced our overprotective mother, promising it was safe. To ease her fears, I sought pepper spray, but stores were out. Instead, I tucked a deodorant can and a small knife into my bag. Meager defenses, but all I had. I planned a 5-day stay, booking 2 nights at a basic guest house, intending to move to a friend's recommended spot afterward. The village was everything they'd promised. Vibrant, warm, a tapestry of dreadlocks, tie-dye, and laughter. Locals greeted me with smiles, their voices soft as the breeze. But my first guest house, a dingy building with peeling paint, unsettled me. The door's latch barely held, security a distant dream. That first night I lay awake, the thin walls amplifying every rustle outside. Nothing happened, but sleep came fitfully. My knife under my pillow. Feel the village's charm wrap around you, its colors dazzling, yet a chill lingers at the edges. The guest house door sways and you're alone. My birthday dawned bright and I shook off the unease. I rented a bike, pedaling through dusty lanes lined with cafes and artisan stalls. The air smelled of chai and fresh earth, the sun warm on my skin. After lunch, I rode to the recommended guest house, a secluded haven, nestled among palms. The owner, a wiry man with a toothy grin, welcomed me, showing off the property. Open huts on one side, a row of rooms on the other. I chose a room, its ladder-like stairs cheaper, knowing I'd spend little time inside. We exchanged numbers, and I promised to move in the next day, my heart light with the thrill of adventure. The next morning I checked into the new guest house, my backpack heavy with anticipation. The owner invited me to lunch, sharing stories of the village's history, its draw for free spirits. He was new, not there when my friend visited, and I studied him, searching for red flags. His manner was friendly, his eyes kind, but something, maybe instinct, kept me on guard. After lunch, I wandered to a nearby restaurant, reconnecting with locals I'd met and befriending two newcomers, one a city boy with a quick laugh. We clicked, spending the afternoon exploring, the village's magic weaving us together. As dusk fell, we returned to my guest house, lounging on woven mats, playing cards under fairy lights. The owner announced a bonfire, inviting his guests at another table. My new friends weren't keen, leaving after dinner, but I stayed, drawn to the fire's glow. We chatted until midnight, the flames casting dancing shadows. When the other guests left, I stood, ready to retreat. The owner urged me to stay, his tone too eager, but I declined, citing tiredness. Alone in my room, I faced its vulnerabilities. A door with 5 locks, only 2 functional, and windows with tattered cloth curtains offering no privacy. I changed in the bathroom, my heart uneasy, and as I unpacked, a sound froze me. My name, whispered twice, soft but unmistakable, from beyond the window. Hear the whisper, your name curling through the night air, a violation of your solitude. The village's peace shatters and fear takes root. My pulse raced, my breath shallow. I stood still, straining to hear, but only crickets answered. I flicked off the lights, plunging the room into darkness, and moved the trash bin against the door, hoping its scrape would warn me of intrusion. I gripped my deodorant and knife, placing them on my pillow, my eyes darting to the windows. Moonlight seeped through the ragged curtains, casting eerie shapes on the walls. I lay down, every nerve alert, watching for movement outside. An hour passed, maybe 2, when the door jolted, a violent shudder as if someone pushed against it. I bolted upright, clutching my weapons, my mouth dry. The shaking grew frantic, the metal frame groaning under pressure. I wanted to scream, but fear silenced me. I knew only one other girl stayed nearby, too far to hear. The assault stopped as suddenly as it began, leaving a suffocating silence. I collapsed onto the bed, trembling, checking the windows for shadows. Nothing. I told myself it was the wind, but the curtains hung still, mocking my denial. It was human, deliberate. Exhaustion overtook me, and I passed out, the knife still in my hand. At 6 a.m., dawn's light woke me, the room bathed in a soft glow. I closed my eyes, craving sleep, but the door shook again, a furious rattle that snapped me upright. I gripped my knife, ready to fight, but the noise ceased after moments. I crept to the door, heart pounding, and saw the bin had shifted. Proof. Something had tried to enter. I sank back, numb, questioning reality. You're awake. But the night's terror clings, the door's scars a silent witness. The village hums outside, but you're trapped in dread. I forced myself to move, stepping out to face the day, studying the owner's face as he greeted me. His smile was unchanged, unreadable, offering no clues. The thought of another night in that room chilled me, but I refused to let fear ruin my trip. I joined my new friends, trekking through hills, watching the sunset from a hilltop where locals played music, the owner among them. Their melodies soothed, but his presence kept me wary. We dined elsewhere, and at 10 p.m. I headed back to the guest house, my phone buzzing with a text from the owner. "Where are you?" I ignored it, assuming concern, but unease gnawed at me. At dinner, he showed me another message, unsent. I was just thinking about you. His eyes searched mine and I forced a smile, deflecting with small talk. My friends left at 11 and I excused myself, claiming exhaustion. The owner questioned my early retreat, but others' presence kept him from pressing. In my room, I locked the door, checked the windows, and waited, heart racing. Nothing happened, the night passing in tense silence. Morning came and I checked out, leaving my bag at the reception-cum-dining area to meet my friends. My bus wasn't until 5 p.m., but I avoided being alone with the owner, his gaze lingering as I thanked him and left. I never learned who whispered my name, who pushed my door, him, his helper, or another. The village's charm faded, replaced by a lingering fear that follows me still, a reminder that even paradises hide shadows. The porch light flickered, casting Winston Ward's shadow across our lawn, his eyes glinting like a wolf's in the dusk. Dark Hollow, a leafy enclave 20 minutes from Pittsburgh, was my childhood haven. Old houses with wide porches, oaks whispering secrets, kids racing bikes under street lamps. I grew up privileged, the world soft around me, but a poison seeped through our idyll, the Ward family. They weren't just neighbors, they were a curse, their presence a chill that turned summer nights sour. Winston, Maggie, Jacob, Johnny, each a shard of nightmare, together a horror that could inspire a filmmaker's darkest dreams. Feel that prickle on your skin, knowing evil lives next door, wearing a human face? I was a teenager when the Ward's shadow fell heaviest, their house a squat gray relic across the street, its windows always dark. Winston, or Win, was the patriarch, a hulking man with a smile too sharp. To girls like me, he was syrupy polite, his voice smooth as oil, but it hid something vile. Alone, his mask slipped, his eyes hungry and glazed roamed my body, his lips curling in a leer that made my stomach churn. One spring afternoon, I met him in a Pittsburgh convenience store, its fluorescent buzz a false shield. He greeted me too close, his small talk a trap. I moved through the aisles grabbing snacks but felt him trailing, his steps silent, deliberate. At one point he stood inches away, sniffing the air, deep and slow, like he was tasting me. See, him now, his breath heavy, his gaze a blade you can't dodge. Let me pause here. At 13 I had a babysitter, Mr. Klein, who lingered too long when tucking me in, his hand brushing my arm. I told my mom, and he vanished from our lives, but that violation, that sense of being prey, never faded. Winston's menace wasn't just for girls. My brother Tom once turned his car in their driveway, a harmless maneuver. Winston exploded from the house, baseball bat raised, his face twisted with rage. Tom floored it, tires squealing, or that bat might have shattered his windshield or worse. To men, Winston was a beast, his civility a thin veneer over raw violence. Maggie, his wife, was a ghost in garish paint. Younger than Winston, she layered makeup so thick it cracked, her eyebrows plucked to threads, aging her decades. She perched on their porch daily knitting, but her needles wove nothing, just a lime green tangle, a spiderweb of yarn she stabbed with trance-like focus. Her voice, scratchy as rusted hinges, turned nursery rhymes into dirges. Once I delivered their misrouted mail, my dog whining at my side. Maggie sat, needles flashing, singing, "Ring around the rosy ashes, ashes, we all fall down." She jolted when she saw me, her painted face a mask of fear, though I was the one trembling. She took the mail, her fingers cold, and asked if I knew the song's roots. "A plague," she said. "Its rash a rosy ring, posies masking death's stench, the fall a mass grave." Hear her now? That voice scraping your nerves, her words a prophecy. Their younger son, Jacob, was a specter of his own. Obsessed with Native American culture, he wasn't respectful, but warped. His face often painted, a crude headdress flapping as he roamed. He carried a bow and arrow, his parents claiming its suction tips harmless, but I saw him once, aiming a sharp-tipped arrow at a kid, his drawstring taut, eyes gleaming. He never fired when adults were near, his malice a secret. Neighbors whispered of him with dead squirrels, their bodies too pristine for roadkill, but a social worker's visit changed nothing. Jacob's silence was a threat, his games a prelude to something darker. Johnny, the older son, was chaos unleashed. In high school, he growled at anyone too close, his fists quick, his expulsion inevitable. Before that, he fixated on a lab partner, a shy girl who rejected his date. He froze her out in class, sabotaging her work until she begged for a new partner. Then one evening, she drove home, alone. Or so she thought. In her rear view, Johnny's grin appeared, his body curled in her, backseat hidden under blankets. She screamed, swerved, and crashed, spending a week in the hospital. The police gave him a slap, calling it teen hijinks. Her family too scared to press charges. See him now, that grin in the mirror, a predator inches from his prey. The wards were a plague, their house a tumor in Dark Hollow's heart. Every neighbor had a story, stolen mail, slashed tires, pets vanishing near their yard. Yet no one acted, fear or disbelief holding us back. When a for sale sign sprouted in their lawn, the street exhaled, whispers of a party spreading. They left quietly, their house empty overnight as if they'd never been. Dark Hollow healed, but the wards became legend, a campfire tale we swore was true. I walk those streets now, the oaks taller, the houses brighter, but their shadow lingers. Winston's leer, Maggie's song, Jacob's arrow, Johnny's grin. They're ghosts I can't outrun. Their next chapter a horror I pray I'll never read. Her eyes gleamed like emeralds in the dark, but behind them lurked a hunger that turned my blood to ice. I was just another guy in his mid-20s, swiping through Tinder in my dim apartment, chasing a spark to break the monotony of my life. Los Angeles was a city of dreams, but mine were small. A decent job, a cold beer, and maybe someone to share it with. Then I saw Lilith, her profile a siren's call. Pigtails framing a pale face, a gothic dress hugging her curves, a smirk that promised trouble. I swiped right, my heart skipping when we matched, but I never imagined where she'd lead me. That night in a place called the Museum of Death, I saw the face of fear, and it wore her smile. My apartment was a shoebox in Silver Lake, its walls thin enough to hear the neighbors' fights. I worked as a graphic designer, my days filled with deadlines and my nights with apps like Tinder and Bumble. I wasn't looking for love, just a connection, a fleeting escape from the grind. Lilith stood out, her photos a mix of playful and dark, black lipstick, fishnet stockings, a vibe that screamed rebellion. Her bio was cryptic, "Let's dance with the dead." I thought it was quirky, artsy, the kind of thing a goth girl might say to stand out. When she messaged me, her words were flirty, teasing, and I was hooked, my fingers typing faster than my brain could warn me. She worked at a coffee shop near the Getty, her shifts ending late. "Pick me up," she texted, "and I'll take you somewhere special." I agreed, my nerves buzzing with anticipation, imagining a dive bar or a rooftop view. I pulled up in my beat-up sedan, the neon of Hollywood Boulevard casting a glow on her as she stepped out. Lilith was even more striking. In person, her green eyes piercing, her pigtails swaying as she slid into the passenger seat. "Drive to Hollywood Boulevard," she said, her voice low, almost a purr. I grinned, thinking she was playing mysterious. But her silence on the ride felt heavy, her gaze fixed on the road like she saw something I didn't. When she finally spoke, directing me to the Museum of Death, my stomach twisted, but I laughed it off, unaware of the darkness waiting inside. The museum was a squat building, its facade unassuming, tucked between a tattoo parlor and a vape shop. The street was gritty, littered with cigarette butts and graffiti, the air thick with exhaust and desperation. Inside, the place was a maze of shadows, its walls crammed with relics of mortality, skulls, death masks, preserved body parts in jars. The lighting was dim, flickering like a bad horror movie, the air stale with a faint chemical tang. I expected Lilith to giggle, to play up the spooky vibe, but her face was serene, almost reverent, as she glided through the exhibits. I followed, my eyes drawn to her more than the displays, her presence magnetic despite the unease creeping up my spine. At first, it was bearable, even intriguing. A display of serial killer letters caught my eye, their scrawled words chilling, but distant. Lilith lingered by a case of shrunken heads, her fingers tracing the glass, her lips curling in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "They're beautiful, aren't they?" she murmured, her voice soft but sharp like a blade wrapped in silk. I nodded, unsure, thinking she meant it ironically. But as we moved deeper, her comments grew stranger, her tone shifting from playful to obsessive. She stopped at a photo of a crime scene, a body twisted in death, and whispered, "Look at how still they are, how perfect." I laughed nervously, but her eyes locked on mine, unblinking, and I felt the room shrink around us. She asked me how I'd want to die, her question casual but piercing, as if she'd peeled back my skin to see inside. "I don't know," I stammered. "Maybe old age, painless?" She scoffed, her pigtails swaying as she shook her head. "Boring," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "I'd choose hypothermia. You feel warm, sleepy, like you're floating away. Some even strip naked, lying in the snow as their heart stops." Her eyes lit up, a feverish glow, and I stepped back, my pulse quickening. She didn't notice or didn't care, her words tumbling out like a confession. Killing someone, though, that's power. Real power. Better than any drug, any lover. To hold their life, to take it. Her smile widened, and I saw something in her. Something not human. Something that hungered for more than my company. The museum felt like a tomb now, its air suffocating, its exhibits pressing in. Lilith moved to a display of Viking torture, a diagram of wings carved from a victim's back. "They called it art," she said, her voice almost dreamy. "Peeling the skin, spreading it like feathers. Beautiful, don't you think?" I didn't answer, my mouth dry, my mind screaming to leave. She turned, her gaze pinning me, and said, "I'd love to watch you drown, naked in a pool, an audience cheering as you gasp, your body going limp, floating free." Her words were a blade, slicing through my denial, and I saw her clearly. A predator, her beauty a trap. I wanted to run, but my feet were led, her voice a chain binding me to her madness. She called me pet. Her tone, shifting to something possessive, intimate in a way that chilled me. "I'd chain you to my bed," she whispered, her fingers brushing my arm. "Do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted." I flinched, pulling away, my heart pounding so loud I thought she'd hear it. Her laugh was soft, mocking, as if my fear amused her. I mumbled an excuse, something about needing air, and stumbled toward the exit, her presence a weight on my back. She followed, her steps silent, her shadow long and twisted under the streetlights. I drove her home, my hands shaking, stopping blocks away as she demanded, her final words a warning. "Too many psychos out there." I sped home, my apartment a sanctuary I didn't trust. I blocked her number, deleted the app, my fingers trembling as I erased her from my life. But she lingered, her face in my dreams, her voice whispering of death and chains. I see her in shadows in the flicker of neon, her eyes promising a dance I'll never escape. I don't date anymore, don't trust the faces on my screen. Lilith taught me that monsters wear human skin and their hunger is a fire that never dies. If you're out there, Lilith, stay away, because I know now what you are, and I'm not your pet. Her eyes gleamed like emeralds in the dark, but behind them lurked a hunger that turned my blood to ice. I was just another guy in his mid-20s, swiping through Tinder in my dim apartment, chasing a spark to break the monotony of my life. Los Angeles was a city of dreams, but mine were small. A decent job, a cold beer, and maybe someone to share it with. Then I saw Lilith, her profile a siren's call. Pigtails framing a pale face, a gothic dress hugging her curves, a smirk that promised trouble. I swiped right, my heart skipping when we matched, but I never imagined where she'd lead me. That night in a place called the Museum of Death, I saw the face of fear, and it wore her smile. My apartment was a shoebox in Silver Lake, its walls thin enough to hear the neighbors' fights. I worked as a graphic designer, my days filled with deadlines and my nights with apps like Tinder and Bumble. I wasn't looking for love, just a connection, a fleeting escape from the grind. Lilith stood out, her photos a mix of playful and dark, black lipstick, fishnet stockings, a vibe that screamed rebellion. Her bio was cryptic, "Let's dance with the dead." I thought it was quirky, artsy, the kind of thing a goth girl might say to stand out. When she messaged me, her words were flirty, teasing, and I was hooked, my fingers typing faster than my brain could warn me. She worked at a coffee shop near the Getty, her shifts ending late. "Pick me up," she texted, "and I'll take you somewhere special." I agreed, my nerves buzzing with anticipation, imagining a dive bar or a rooftop view. I pulled up in my beat-up sedan, the neon of Hollywood Boulevard casting a glow on her as she stepped out. Lilith was even more striking. In person, her green eyes piercing, her pigtails swaying as she slid into the passenger seat. "Drive to Hollywood Boulevard," she said, her voice low, almost a purr. I grinned, thinking she was playing mysterious. But her silence on the ride felt heavy, her gaze fixed on the road like she saw something I didn't. When she finally spoke, directing me to the Museum of Death, my stomach twisted, but I laughed it off, unaware of the darkness waiting inside. The museum was a squat building, its facade unassuming, tucked between a tattoo parlor and a vape shop. The street was gritty, littered with cigarette butts and graffiti, the air thick with exhaust and desperation. Inside, the place was a maze of shadows, its walls crammed with relics of mortality, skulls, death masks, preserved body parts in jars. The lighting was dim, flickering like a bad horror movie, the air stale with a faint chemical tang. I expected Lilith to giggle, to play up the spooky vibe, but her face was serene, almost reverent, as she glided through the exhibits. I followed, my eyes drawn to her more than the displays, her presence magnetic despite the unease creeping up my spine. At first it was bearable, even intriguing. A display of serial killer letters caught my eye, their scrawled words chilling, but distant. Lilith lingered by a case of shrunken heads, her fingers tracing the glass, her lips curling in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "They're beautiful, aren't they?" she murmured, her voice soft but sharp like a blade wrapped in silk. I nodded, unsure, thinking she meant it ironically. But as we moved deeper, her comments grew stranger, her tone shifting from playful to obsessive. She stopped at a photo of a crime scene, a body twisted in death, and whispered, "Look at how still they are, how perfect." I laughed nervously, but her eyes locked on mine, unblinking, and I felt the room shrink around us. She asked me how I'd want to die, her question casual but piercing, as if she'd peeled back my skin to see inside. "I don't know," I stammered. "Maybe old age, painless?" She scoffed, her pigtails swaying as she shook her head. "Boring," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "I'd choose hypothermia. You feel warm, sleepy, like you're floating away. Some even strip naked, lying in the snow as their heart stops." Her eyes lit up, a feverish glow, and I stepped back, my pulse quickening. She didn't notice or didn't care, her words tumbling out like a confession. Killing someone, though, that's power. Real power. Better than any drug, any lover. To hold their life, to take it. Her smile widened, and I saw something in her. Something not human. Something that hungered for more than my company. The museum felt like a tomb now, its air suffocating, its exhibits pressing in. Lilith moved to a display of Viking torture, a diagram of wings carved from a victim's back. "They called it art," she said, her voice almost dreamy. "Peeling the skin, spreading it like feathers. Beautiful, don't you think?" I didn't answer, my mouth dry, my mind screaming to leave. She turned, her gaze pinning me, and said, "I'd love to watch you drown, naked in a pool, an audience cheering as you gasp, your body going limp, floating free." Her words were a blade, slicing through my denial, and I saw her clearly. A predator, her beauty a trap. I wanted to run, but my feet were lead, her voice a chain binding me to her madness. She called me pet. Her tone, shifting to something possessive, intimate in a way that chilled me. "I'd chain you to my bed," she whispered, her fingers brushing my arm. "Do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted." I flinched, pulling away, my heart pounding so loud I thought she'd hear it. Her laugh was soft, mocking, as if my fear amused her. I mumbled an excuse, something about needing air, and stumbled toward the exit, her presence a weight on my back. She followed, her steps silent, her shadow long and twisted under the streetlights. I drove her home, my hands shaking, stopping blocks away as she demanded, her final words a warning. "Too many psychos out there." I sped home, my apartment a sanctuary I didn't trust. I blocked her number, deleted the app, my fingers trembling as I erased her from my life. But she lingered, her face in my dreams, her voice whispering of death and chains. I see her in shadows in the flicker of neon, her eyes promising a dance I'll never escape. I don't date anymore, don't trust the faces on my screen. Lilith taught me that monsters wear human skin and their hunger is a fire that never dies. If you're out there, Lilith, stay away, because I know now what you are, and I'm not your pet. The Rhode Island night stretched black and endless, my headlights slicing through the spring chill of 2017. Trees loomed along the road, their shadows twisting like silent watchers. I was driving home from Newport, the hum of my old car a familiar comfort. But as I turned down a quiet shortcut, the air grew heavy and something waited in the darkness. A vintage Buick, its presence defying reason, ready to unravel my world. I've never been one for ghost stories. Call me a skeptic, raised on logic and science, the kind who rolls their eyes at paranormal nonsense. My favorite show was Penn and Teller Bullshit, where they tore apart conspiracies and superstitions with razor-sharp wit. For years, I believed everything had an explanation, limited only by our understanding. That was my truth until early spring 2017, when I encountered something that shattered my certainty, leaving me haunted by a mystery I can't solve. It wasn't my imagination, no matter what friends say. It happened, and it shook me to my core. It was around 9 p.m., the Northeast still cloaked in early darkness. I was driving back to Narragansett from a buddy's place in Newport, a route I'd taken countless times. Feeling bold, I opted for a shortcut through Saunderstown, a winding path I knew like the back of my hand, or so I thought. Complacency, that old enemy, crept in, my mind drifting to the evening's laughter and cold beers. Halfway through, I missed a turn, the road narrowing into unfamiliar territory. Before I knew it, I was in a residential cul-de-sac, the houses dark, their lawns eerily still. Embarrassed, I grabbed my phone, Google Maps glowing as I plotted my escape. I started a U-turn, muttering at my stupidity, when a shape loomed in, my headlights, a car, blocking my path. Feel the night close in, the cul-de-sac a trap under the stars. Your headlights catch something ancient, and your pulse quickens. I slammed the brakes, my heart lurching, expecting an angry driver to lean out and curse. I mouthed apologies, hands raised in surrender, but no response came. Then I saw it. The car wasn't modern. It was a Buick, straight out of a black and white gangster flick, 1930s or 40s, its curves gleaming like it had rolled off the assembly line yesterday. The chrome sparkled, the paint a deep, flawless black, as if time hadn't touched it. I stared, half admiring, half unsettled, wondering who'd pour such money into a relic. I gave a thumbs up, pointing to the hood, but the driver didn't move. He sat behind the wheel, a pale silhouette, his face fixed in a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Something about him, his waxy skin, his stiff posture, reminded me of a ventriloquist's dummy, lifeless yet watching. Realizing I was still blocking him, I shifted into reverse, backing up to let him pass. His smile never wavered. His eyes locked on me through the windshield, unblinking in the glare of his headlights. I shivered, the air in my car suddenly cold. Just as I cleared enough space, my engine sputtered and died. The dashboard went dark, the radio silent, my headlights fading to nothing. I twisted the key, panic rising, but the car was lifeless. My piece of junk sedan had its quirks, but this was new, total failure at the worst moment. I jiggled the ignition, cursing under my breath, feeling like a fool in front of this vintage car guy who must be fuming by now. I rolled down my window, leaning out to shout, "Go around, man, my car's dead." But he didn't budge, his Buick, idling with a low, ominous hum. Then I heard it, music faint but distinct, drifting from his car. It was old, a looping melody with no lyrics, all warbling strings and hollow notes like something from a forgotten radio station. The sound crawled up my spine, raising the hairs on my neck. I squinted, his headlights blinding me, hiding his face in a white glare. The music grew louder, unnatural, as if it wasn't just coming from his car but from the night itself. You're trapped, your car silent, his headlights burning into you. The music wraps around you and something's wrong, terribly wrong. The standoff stretched, seconds feeling like hours. I sat frozen, unwilling to antagonize this silent stranger, my mind racing for explanations. Was he pranking me? Was my car's battery shot? Then, a flicker. My dashboard lights blinked, a faint pulse of life. Hope surged and I turned the key, praying for a miracle. Nothing. But the radio crackled, bursting into sound. The same eerie tune from the Buick, note for note, a trilling loop that filled my car with dread. My breath caught, my hands shaking. How? My radio was off, my car dead. The music wasn't mine, it was his, invading my space, a violation I couldn't rationalize. I stared at the Buick, its headlights searing my vision, the driver's smile a ghostly smear. Then, as if a switch flipped, his lights went dark and my radio fell silent. plunging me into blackness. My night vision was ruined, the cul-de-sac a void. I fumbled with the key, desperate, and my car roared to life, headlights flaring. Relief flooded me, but it died fast. The Buick was gone. Not driving away, not parked, gone, as if it had never been there. I gasped, spinning in my seat, scanning the street. But the cul-de-sac was empty, the night swallowing any trace. A scream tore from my throat, raw and involuntary. A car that size, that loud, couldn't vanish in seconds. I'd have heard it, seen it, but there was nothing. Close your eyes. See the empty road, your headlights piercing nothing. The music lingers in your ears, a ghost that won't let go. I floored the gas, tires screeching as I fled, my heart hammering. The drive home blurred, my mind replaying the Buick, the driver, that music. I was sober. Rhode Island troopers love DUI stops, and I'd avoided even a sip. Was it a hallucination? A stroke? I doubted my sanity, but the memory was vivid, unshakable. At home I couldn't sleep. The Buick's image burned into me. It sparked an obsession, a need to explain what logic couldn't. I returned to the cul-de-sac, finding no tire marks, no signs of another car. I scoured Narragansett for vintage car owners, diving into forums, calling collectors. I read medical journals on blackouts, convinced I had syncopal attacks, where the heart starves the brain. A doctor checked me, found nothing wrong, dismissing stress as a cause. I wasn't stressed, not then. I even ventured into UFO lore, tales of time loss and strange encounters, but it felt too far-fetched. A betrayal of my skepticism. One lead gripped me. A man in Middleton selling a 1937 Buick Special. A wreck needing love. I posed as a buyer, guilt gnawing as he sent photos, his excitement palpable. The car resembled mine. Same curves, same era, but it was impossible. His was a ruin, mine pristine. He said his father bought it at a police auction, but knew no more. The car's history buried with him. Friends latched onto it, urging me to dig deeper. Murder, hit and run. But the trail ended there. A coincidence. Too neat, too maddening. 4 years later, I'm still haunted. I drive that route sometimes, half expecting the Buick to reappear, its driver smiling. I don't believe in ghosts, but what else explains it? The music, the vanishing, the fear that lingers. I leave it to you to decide, but don't call it a ghost car. I've heard that too many times, and it cuts too close to a truth I'm not ready to face. The doorknob's faint rattle sliced through the night, a sound too soft to be wind, too deliberate to be chance. At 15, I was alone in a 2-story house, its walls creaking with secrets I didn't want to know. My parents were gone. Where, I never asked, their absence a shadow I'd grown used to. I slept on the living room couch, not the upstairs bedrooms, for 2 reasons. It was the heart of the house where every sound reached me, and it was steps from every exit. Front door, back door, windows. I was a kid playing adult. My world. A fragile fortress, and that night at 2 a.m., something tested its walls. Feel that chill in your chest, knowing your sanctuary isn't safe? The house was old, its paint peeling, its floors groaning underfoot. I'd learned its noises, the hum of the fridge, the drip of a leaky faucet, but this was new. A slow, cautious jiggle at the front door, like someone testing a lock with care. My eyes snapped open, the couch's springs digging into my back, my heart a drum in the dark. The jiggling grew bolder, impatient, metal scraping for 2 agonizing minutes. I clutched my blanket, breath shallow, willing it to stop. It did, but silence was worse, heavy with intent. I didn't call the police. Fear of foster care, of my parents' trouble, chained me to silence. See that door now? Its lock trembling. A stranger's hand inches away. Let me pause here. At 12, I stayed over at a friend's house. Her dad, drunk, tried our bedroom door at midnight, his shadow looming through the crack. We barricaded it with a chair, hearts pounding, and never spoke of it again. That terror of invasion shaped me. I stayed awake, eyes fixed on the ceiling, waiting for the back door to rattle. It did, softer but no less sinister, then stopped. Dawn broke, gray and cold, and I shuffled to school, exhaustion blurring the world, the night's threat a half-remembered dream. Days passed, uneasy but quiet, my routine a shield. School, homework, sleep on the couch, a metal baseball bat tucked beside me. I took sleeping pills, stolen from my mom's drawer, to dull the edges of my fear, but they muddied my mind, trapping me in half-wakeful haze. One night, I jolted upright, the pills fog thick, a sound pulling me from sleep. Oh, heavy scrape upstairs like a door forced open, its wood grinding. The upstairs door stuck, needing a shove to budge. And that sound was unmistakable, a violation of my domain. I froze, my body leaden, sleep paralysis gripping me, unsure if I dreamed. A creak followed, like bed springs under weight. Then silence, oppressive and alive. Hear that silence now, louder than any scream, hiding what moves above. I drifted back to sleep, my mind whispering excuses, a homeless man, mistaking the house for empty, harmless in his need. But dawn brought no peace, only a nagging dread. That night I woke again, no pills, my senses sharp. The air felt wrong, charged like eyes were on me. From the couch I could see the stairs, their steps fading into shadow. Halfway down, a figure crouched. A man, long hair spilling over his shoulders, his face lost in the dark. His stare pinned, me a predator sizing prey, and I felt him seeing me, verifying my existence. My hand found the bat, its cold metal grounding me. I gripped it, heart thundering, and he rose, slow, backing up the stairs without turning. His movements fluid, unnatural. I waited, ears straining, but no sound came, no footsteps, no door, just a void where he should have been. See him now? His silhouette melting into the dark, waiting just out of sight? Sunrise found me sleepless, the bat still in hand. I left for school, my mind replaying his crouch, his stare, questioning my sanity. That evening, my boyfriend, a lanky kid with kind eyes, came over. As we neared the house, he frowned. Your window's open. Upstairs, the sticky doors room gaped, its window wide, curtains fluttering. I told him everything, the doorknobs, the scrape, the man. We searched the house, his flashlight sweeping corners, but found nothing. No footprints, no trace. I locked the window. Its sash warped, and convinced myself it was a vagrant spooked by my presence, gone for good. We stayed up laughing to bury my fear, but I skipped the pills, my nerves too raw for sleep. Midnight passed, and I woke to the scrape again. Upstairs, real, no dream. The sticky door groaned, deliberate, someone forcing it open. They knew I was here, yet came back, their boldness a blade in my gut. I was done hiding, done cowering in my own home. I grabbed the bat, flipped on the lights, their glare harsh, and shouted, "I'm coming up!" "Begone." My voice cracked, but I climbed, each step a battle, the bat heavy in my grip. The upstairs hall was empty, doors shut save one, the sticky door ajar, its room dark. I checked closets, corners, my breath loud, but found nothing. Downstairs was clear too, the house mocking my courage. I felt foolish, adrenaline fading, and stayed at a friend's that night, the bat by my side. Morning brought routine, school, normalcy. But as I dressed, I froze. The upstairs window was open again, its sash lifted, a breeze stirring the curtains. My blood chilled. I hadn't checked under the beds last night, too focused on doors and closets. The thought hit like a fist. He could have been there, inches below, his breath silent as I searched. I grabbed my bag, left the bat and fled, relief warring with terror. Imagine him now, curled beneath the bed, his eyes tracking your steps, patient as death. I never looked, and that choice haunts me, a shadow I carry still. The house stands empty in my memory, its windows open, his presence a ghost I'll never escape. The night was a living thing, pressing against the glass of my guard shack, whispering danger in every shadow. I was a security guard, working the graveyard shift at a sprawling parking ramp in a city that never truly slept. The air was cool, heavy with the scent of concrete and exhaust, the kind of quiet that amplified every rustle, every step. My shack was a fragile fortress, a 10-foot cube of glass and metal at the ramp's entrance, my only refuge in a world of dark corners. Most nights were uneventful, but that night a woman's gaze burned through the darkness, her anger a promise of violence I barely escaped. She was out there, waiting, and what I found in the aftermath told me how close I'd come to her blade. I was small, barely 5 feet tall and unarmed, a fact that weighed heavier with each passing hour. The job was supposed to be easy. Sit in the shack for an hour, walk the building, repeat until dawn. The pay was decent, enough to cover rent and bills, but the solitude was a tax on my nerves. I'd been at it for a year, long enough to know the routine, long enough to dread the moments when I wasn't alone. The parking ramp was a concrete labyrinth, its levels stretching into shadows where lights flickered and died. The building housed offices, a bank and an ATM vestibule open 24/7, a magnet for those with nowhere else to go. My protocol for handling vagrants was strict. Ask them to leave, then tell them firmly, and if they refused, call the police. I hated it the way it pitted me against people already broken by life. Most were compliant, their eyes weary but understanding, some even grateful for a kind word. I'd listen to their stories, offer directions to shelters, my heart aching as I sent them back into the cold. But that night something was different. I was halfway through my shift, the clock ticking past 2 a.m., when I saw her in the ATM vestibule, curled against the wall, her belongings a tattered pile beside her. She looked harmless, a bundle of rags in the fluorescent glare, but her presence sent a shiver down my spine. I approached, my flashlight beam cutting through the dimness, my voice steady but cautious. "Ma'am, you can't sleep here, you need to move along." She stirred, her head lifting, her eyes meeting mine with a spark of defiance. She was middle-aged, her face weathered, her hair matted under a frayed hoodie. "I'm just resting," she mumbled, her tone sharp but not hostile. I repeated the request, citing policy, offering a shelter's address. She grumbled but didn't move, her gaze hardening. I escalated, my voice firmer. "You have to leave or I'll call the police." Her eyes narrowed, a flash of anger that made my stomach tighten. But she gathered her things, muttering curses as she shuffled out. I watched her go, my hand on the radio, my heart pounding. She crossed the lot, her figure fading into the shadows, but her anger lingered, a weight in the air. I returned to my shack, locking the door, my eyes scanning the darkness. The lot was empty, the city's hum a distant lullaby, but I couldn't shake her stare, the way it seemed to see through me. I settled into my chair, my logbook open, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying her words, her eyes, the way she'd clutched her bag like a weapon. I told myself she was gone, just another lost soul. But the night had other plans, and it wasn't done with me. An hour later, I stepped out for my patrol, my boots echoing on the concrete. The building was silent, its corridors cold and sterile, the ATM vestibule now empty. I checked doors, tested locks, my flashlight beam dancing across walls, but my thoughts kept drifting to her. I'd seen angry vagrants before, heard their shouts, their threats, but something about her was different, calculated, almost predatory. I finished my rounds, my unease growing, and headed back to the shack. As I passed the vestibule door, I glanced through its small window, a habit I rarely indulged. What I saw stopped my breath. A faint wobble, a shadow moving behind my shack where no one should be. My heart raced, my hand gripping the flashlight like a lifeline. The shack was exposed, its glass walls offering no cover, its door a flimsy barrier. I pressed myself against the building, my eyes fixed on the lot, searching for her. The shadow shifted, a flicker of movement, and I knew it was her. Hiding, waiting. For what? For me? I radioed for the police, my voice low, my words stumbling as I described the threat. "She's behind my shack," I whispered. She was angry earlier. The dispatcher promised a quick response, but minutes felt like hours, each one stretching my nerves taut. I stayed hidden, my back to the wall, my eyes locked on the shack. She didn't move, didn't emerge, but her presence was a pressure, a threat I couldn't ignore. Then a scream shattered the silence, her voice raw and furious, echoing across the lot. I saw her kick at debris near the shack, her figure briefly illuminated by a streetlight, her face twisted in rage. She stormed up the ramp's stairwell, her footsteps fading, and I held my breath, praying she was gone. The police arrived. There, lights flashing, and after a tense exchange, they escorted her away, her curses lingering in the air. I thought it was over, but the night had one last secret to reveal. My next patrol was a blur, my legs heavy, my mind racing. I circled the building, my flashlight sweeping every corner, expecting her to leap from the shadows. Near the vestibule door, I noticed something new. A mirror on the wall, its surface cracked, a large shard missing. My blood ran cold, my mind flashing to her bag, her anger, the wobble behind my shack. She'd taken that shard, hidden it, planned to use it on me. I saw it clearly now. Her waiting, the glass gleaming in her hand, her eyes fixed on my shack's door. The police later told me of a similar case, a woman matching her description attacking a Good Samaritan, her weapon a broken bottle. I'd escaped, but the truth cut deeper than any blade. I'd been her target, and I'd never felt so close to death. Now, I flinch at every shadow, every stranger's glance. The shack is still my post, but it's no longer a refuge, just a cage of glass and fear. I see her in my dreams, her face reflected in a shattered mirror, her scream a warning I'll never forget. I don't know where she is, but I know this. Some threats don't leave, they linger, waiting for the next dark night. The stranger's shadow clung to mine, his footsteps a rhythm that turned Paris's charm into a cage. I was 19, a sophomore studying French, chasing dreams in a semester abroad in Paris. The city was a painting, cobblestone streets, cafe lights, the Seine's silver ripple, but its beauty hid sharper edges. My exchange program promised immersion, and I dove in, eager to speak the language, taste the culture. One crisp evening, I headed to a language exchange event in the 11th arrondissement, a cozy bar where locals and foreigners swapped English and French over clinking glasses. My friends from the program came, but we fanned out, mingling with strangers, the air buzzing with laughter and halting phrases. Feel that thrill of a new city, its promise bright, but its shadows creeping closer? I found a table with a lively mix, students, expats, Parisians. Among them was Julian, late 30s or early 40s. His dark hair swept back, his smile disarming. His accent wrapped around his words like velvet, and he leaned in, asking about my studies, my life in America. I answered, flattered by his interest, my French stumbling but earnest. As the night wore on, his charm curdled, his question sharpened. Where did I live? Was I alone in Paris? Did I have a boyfriend? His eyes, too bright, locked on mine, his body inching closer. The table's edge no barrier. I deflected, keeping my tone light, but my stomach knotted. His intensity a weight I couldn't shake. See him now. His smile a mask. His gaze a hook you can't escape. Let me pause here. At 16, a man followed me home from a bus stop, his steps echoing mine, his whistle low and taunting. I ran, heart pounding, and locked my door. But that fear of being hunted never left me. I excused myself, joining my friend's table, their chatter a lifeline. Julian followed uninvited, dragging a chair to my side. He ignored them, his words aimed at me, his stare unrelenting, like I was the only person in the room. My friends exchanged glances, their laughter faltering. I said, I was leaving, my voice tight, and he asked for my number. I don't have a French phone yet, I lied, my palms damp. His smile didn't waver, but his eyes narrowed. I'll see you around, he said, his voice low, a promise I didn't want. I fled with my friends, the bar's warmth souring, Paris's streets colder than before. Days later, I walked home from class near République, the evening alive with commuters, tourists, the clatter of scooters. A prickle ran down my neck, footsteps trailing mine, too close, too steady. I glanced back, Julian in the same dark jacket, his smile flashing like a blade. My heart lurched. He waved, casual, like we were friends, but his pace matched mine. Deliberate. I wove through the crowd, my breath shallow, and ducked into a cafe, its warmth a frail shield. I fumbled with my phone, pretending to text, my eyes darting to the window. He didn't enter, but when I left, he was across the street, leaning against a lamppost, his gaze pinning me. I took a winding route home, alleys and side streets, checking corners, my keys a weapon in my fist. That night I locked my apartment, checked every window, the city's glow mocking my fear. Hear those footsteps now, relentless, turning every street into a trap? Sleep was a stranger, my dreams jagged with his face. A week later, a friend dragged me to another language exchange, a different bar, its crowd vibrant, safe. Or so I thought. I scanned the room, my nerves raw, and there he was, Julian, alone, his eyes sweeping until they locked on me. My blood froze. He approached, his smile easy, calling it a happy coincidence. But his voice had an edge, his words probing. Why? Hadn't I returned to the first bar? Was I avoiding him? I forced a laugh, my hands trembling, muttering about schoolwork. He leaned closer, his breath sour with wine, his whisper chilling. Paris isn't safe for girls like you. Out alone. My friend grabbed my arm, pulling me to a cab, the driver's radio a distant hum as I spilled everything. Julian's questions, his stalking, his eyes. She paled, saying he'd asked other students about me, my classes, my dorm, my routines. Feel that violation, your life dissected by a stranger's greed. I couldn't go to the police, my French was too weak, my fear of dismissal too strong. I stopped attending language exchanges, took zigzagging routes to school, my head on a swivel. Paris, once a dream, was a maze of dread, every shadow his. A month later, I waited for the metro at Châtelet, the platform near empty, its tiles gleaming under harsh lights. A prickle returned, sharp and cold. Julien stood at the platform's end, his dark jacket blending with the gloom, his eyes fixed, On me. My pulse roared, my body rooted as the train's rumble grew. I leaped into a crowded car, shoving through bodies, my breath ragged. Through the window, his smile lingered, cold and knowing, as the train pulled away, the tunnels black, swallowing him. See that smile now? Carved into your memory, a threat that never speaks? I told my program coordinator the next day, her face tight with concern. She moved me to a new dorm across the city, its address a secret, its locks heavy. I never saw Julian, again his absence a fragile relief. But Paris changed, its cafes lost their warmth, its streets their charm. I learned to say no, sharp and final, to trust the chill in my gut, to see danger in a stranger's smile. Years later I walk alone, but his face lingers, a ghost in every crowd. His footsteps a rhythm I can't unhear. My keys stay clutched, my roots winding, Paris a memory of beauty and dread forever entwined. The rain fell in sheets, a cold curtain hiding the city's sins, but Roberto Giovanni's voice cut through it, sealing my fate. I was a young accountant, fresh from college, standing under an awning in New York's underworld, my suit soaked, my dreams of working for a presidential campaign already fading. My uncle Romano, a man with eyes that saw too much, had brought me here, to the heart of the Giovanni empire, a mafia family that owned shops, restaurants, cops, and senators. Roberto, the patriarch, loomed over me, his cigar glowing like a devil's, his hand heavy on my shoulder. "You're the kid Romano's been bragging about," he said, his smile sharp as a blade. I thought I was stepping into power, but I was walking into a cage, one I'd only escaped through blood and betrayal. My life before Giovanni was ordinary, a small apartment in Brooklyn, nights spent crunching numbers and dreaming of Washington. Romano changed that, his voice low and urgent one evening. "Forget politicians. Work for the man who owns them." I was naive, dazzled by the promise of wealth, blind to the chains that came with it. Roberto's office was a fortress of dark, wood and leather, the air thick with smoke and secrets. He handed me a stack of $100 bills, his laugh booming. "Buy a suit, kid, look the part." I did. My new wardrobe a mask for the role I'd play, keeper of the Giovanni's dirty money, their ledger of sins. I rose fast, my knack for numbers earning Roberto's trust. I tracked their empire, cash from drug deals, payoffs to judges, profits from illegal gambling dens. The Giovanni family was a machine, ruthless and precise, and I was its heart, pumping their secrets through spreadsheets and coded books. Roberto treated me like a son, his daughters Talia and Rafina a constant presence. Talia was quiet, her eyes soft, a flower in a field of thorns. Rafina was wildfire, her beauty sharp and cruel, her temper a storm that left wreckage. She'd once had a lover beaten for glancing at another woman, her laughter echoing as he bled. I stayed clear of her, sensing the danger in her gaze, but fate had other plans, and they wore Roberto's smile. One October morning, the city drowning in rain, Roberto waited outside his mansion, his coat drenched, his face a mask of urgency. "Hurry, kid," he barked, pulling me close, his breath hot with whiskey. "You're family now, but your next words decide your future." My heart sank, his grip tightening as he spoke. "You're marrying my daughter, Rafina, not Talia. Don't ask why. Say yes and everything's yours." I froze, my mind racing. Rafina, with her venomous smile, her unpredictable rage. But Roberto's eyes left no room for refusal, and I nodded, my voice a whisper, sealing a pact I'd come to curse. I was trapped, a pawn in their game, and Rafina's claws were already closing around me. Our marriage was a farce, a cold alliance of convenience. Rafina ruled our home like a tyrant, her mood swinging from indifference to cruelty. She spent money like water, her tantrums leaving broken glass and bruised egos. I stayed silent, my anger simmering, my nights spent poring over Giovanni's books, searching for an escape. She flaunted her father's power, her threats a constant shadow. "Daddy will bury you if you cross me." I believed her, but Roberto's affection, calling me son, sharing his cigars, kept me tethered, a fool clinging to a twisted family. The breaking point came one rainy night, after a business trip with Romano. Rafina, in a fit of paranoia, accused me of striking her, a lie she fed to Roberto. He called me to his office, his voice calm but deadly. "I know you didn't hit her, kid," he said, his eyes hard, "but she's my daughter, and I keep her happy." I nodded, my jaw tight, but as I left, one of his goons ambushed me, his fists shattering my nose. I staggered home, blood dripping, Rafina's smile waiting like a predator's grin. "Looks good on you," she taunted, and something in me snapped. I wasn't their dog anymore. I was a man with a plan, and it would burn their empire too. After 3 days, that's all I had. Roberto had booked us tickets to Italy, a honeymoon to Sardinia, but I saw my chance. I gathered every document, every ledger, every name, cops, judges, dealers, proof of Giovanni's crimes. My hands shook as I copied files, my heart pounding with the weight of betrayal. I knew the feds, knew which ones weren't on the payroll, and I delivered the evidence, my voice steady, my terms clear. No witness stand, no spotlight, just freedom. They agreed, their eyes gleaming with the prize of a mafia takedown, and I walked away, the clock ticking toward Sardinia. The boat rocked gently off Sardinia's coast, the sea a mirror of stars, the air warm with salt and promise. Rafina stood at the rail, her eyes sparkling as dolphins leapt nearby, a rare innocence softening her face. I handed her my phone, Roberto's voice crackling through. "Talk to your dad," I said, my tone cold. She took it, confused, and I watched her crumble as she learned the truth. Roberto was dead, gunned down by feds when he resisted. She turned to me, tears streaming, her arms seeking comfort, but I stepped back, my smile sharp. "I did it," I said, my voice steady. "I gave them everything. Your father's gone because of me." Her scream was primal, her fists flying, but the men I'd hired held her, their grips iron. I'd planned this, paid for their silence, their loyalty. Rafina's eyes burned with hate, her voice a hiss. "Why?" I laughed, bitter and free. "Because you broke me, Rafina. Because your family thought they owned me. Good riddance to them all." I gave her a choice. Come back, live quietly, or stay on the boat, alone, with a bottle of water and 2 days' supplies. She spat at me, her pride a death sentence, choosing the sea over surrender. I left her there, her figure shrinking as we sailed away, the waves swallowing her defiance. I returned to New York, took over Roberto's legitimate businesses, and married Talia, her gentleness a balm for my scars. Life was good, or so I thought, until 6 years later, when a postcard arrived from Sardinia. Its message was simple, written in a scrawl I knew too well. "Hey, husband." My blood froze, my dreams now haunted by Rafina's face, her eyes gleaming from the sea, promising vengeance. I don't know how she survived, if she's out there, but I know this. Some debts are never paid and some ghosts never rest. The trucking company office sat quiet at 3 a.m., its fluorescent lights humming over a sea of paperwork. Outside, the neon glow of the adjacent gas station spilled through the big glass window, casting jagged shadows across the empty lot. I was alone, filling in for a night shift, the distant rumble of a truck on the highway my only companion. Then a sudden jolt shattered the silence. A woman's fists against the glass, her wild eyes locking onto mine, pulling me into a nightmare I'd never forget. I worked as a dispatcher for a small trucking company, a job that kept me busy coordinating drivers and loads. Our main office was a modest building next to a gas station and convenience store, its large window offering a clear view of the pumps and lot. I usually worked days, surrounded by the chatter of coworkers, but occasionally I'd cover a night shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., when the world outside felt like a void. The lot was well lit, its sodium lights blazing, but the emptiness at night gave it an eerie edge, like a stage waiting for something to happen. That night, I was alone, covering for a sick colleague, my first time solo in months. The office was a cocoon of routine, paperwork, coffee, the soft glow of my computer screen. I'd grown used to the night's rhythm, the occasional trucker filling up, the clerk at the store restocking shelves, the highway's distant hum. But at 3 a.m., the world was still, the lot deserted save for a flickering neon sign. I was sorting invoices, my eyes heavy when a violent thud shook the room. My heart lurched, paper scattering as I looked up. A woman stood outside, her palms pressed against the window, fingers splayed, her face inches from the glass. Her eyes, wide and frantic, bored into me, her hair a tangled mess, as if she'd been running for days. Feel the air turn heavy, the office's calm now a fragile veil. Her eyes burn through the glass and you're trapped in her gaze. I stood, my chair scraping the floor, pulse racing. She was in her 30s maybe, her clothes disheveled, a stained jacket, jeans torn at the knee. Her hand slammed the window again, the glass trembling, her voice muffled but desperate. "Let me in, I need help." The office door was locked, a strict rule for night shifts, and I wasn't supposed to open it for strangers. I shouted back, keeping the desk between us, "What's wrong? What do you need?" But her words tumbled out in a jumbled rush, incoherent, repeating, "Please open the door." Her eyes darted behind her as if something lurked in the lot's shadows. I grabbed the phone, my fingers fumbling, ready to call security, but hesitated. Was she in real danger, or was she unhinged? I yelled again, asking who was after her. But she didn't answer, just pounded the glass, her screams rising. "Someone's out there, open it." My stomach knotted, my gaze flicking to the lot, empty, the pumps silent under the neon glow. I warned her I was calling the police, hoping it would snap her out of it or drive her away, but she didn't flinch. Instead, she vanished from the window, her footsteps crunching as she ran to the side of the building out of sight. I dialed 911, my voice shaking as I explained. A woman, erratic, trying to get in. The operator told me to stay put, keep the door locked and wait for officers. As I spoke, a new sound froze me. A scraping at the door, metal on metal like she was clawing at the lock. My breath hitched, the phone slipping in my sweaty grip. The office felt smaller, its walls closing in, the window exposing me to the night. I whispered to the operator, describing the noise. My eyes fixed on the door's handle, expecting it to turn. The scraping stopped, leaving a silence that pressed against my ears, heavier than her screams. You're alone, the phone your lifeline, but the door trembles with her unseen efforts. The lot outside watches and fear takes hold. I crept to the window, peering into the lot, but saw nothing. No woman, no movement, just the neon's cold glow. My heart slowed, but dread lingered. Had she given up, or was she waiting, hidden? I stayed by the desk, phone in hand, counting minutes until help arrived. 20 agonizing minutes later, headlights swept the lot, 2 police officers stepping out. They checked the area, flashlights cutting through the dark, but found no trace of her, no footprints, no signs of struggle. They told me a woman matching her description had been causing trouble at nearby businesses, likely homeless, struggling with mental health. "She's harmless, probably," one said, but his words didn't soothe me. They stayed a while, ensuring I was safe, then left, their taillights fading into the night. I tried to finish my shift, but my hands shook too much to work. I called my boss, voice cracking, and he told me to lock up and go home. I checked every corner of the lot before sprinting to my car, the neon lights casting my shadow long and warped. At home I couldn't sleep, her eyes haunting me, her screams echoing. The next day, a coworker shared news that turned my blood cold. The woman had returned to the gas station at dawn, trying to break into parked cars. The store clerk called the police, who arrested her. They found a knife in her pocket, its blade glinting with intent. My stomach churned, imagining what might have happened if I had opened that door, if her desperation had turned violent. I refused night shifts after that, telling my boss I'd only work days. He agreed, no questions asked. But the gas station, once just a backdrop, became a place of dread. Driving by, I'd scan the lot, half expecting her face at the pumps, her wild eyes searching. She's likely gone, locked away, or lost to the streets, but her shadow lingers. That night stripped away my sense of safety, showing how thin the line is between routine and terror, how quickly a stranger's plea can become a threat. The trailer's silhouette loomed at dusk, its rusted frame a wound in the earth, as if the ground itself had birthed it to swallow our peace. I was 12, growing up in a quiet neighborhood where Maple Street ended in a weedy lot, a place of bike, races, laughter, and summer dusk. Families filled the houses, old folks waved from porches, kids chased fireflies under street lamps. It was safe, or so we thought, until the trailer appeared, unannounced, like a shadow cast by no light. One morning it was just there, old, battered, its windows cracked, door sagging, a relic that didn't belong. Feel that unease? A stranger's mark on your home, its presence a riddle no one asked for. No one saw it arrive, no tow truck, no movers, no sound. It squatted on the empty lot, its metal skin peeling, rust bleeding into the grass. Neighbors whispered, puzzled. Maybe a drifter's squat, a temporary blight. But weeks passed, and it stayed, untouched, silent. No one entered or left, yet at night a faint flicker danced inside, a candle's glow or something colder. Kids spun tales, ghosts, curses, a killer's hideout. My friend Tommy bragged he'd heard whispers from within, his voice trembling despite his bravado. I laughed, but my skin prickled, the trailer's stillness too heavy for a child's game. See it now, its windows blind, but watching, holding secrets you don't dare touch. Let me pause here. At 10, I snuck into an abandoned barn with my cousin, its rafters creaking, air thick with dust. Something moved in the loft, a shadow, a breath. And we ran, hearts pounding, never speaking of it again. That fear of the unknown lurking shaped me. The grown-ups grumbled at neighborhood meetings, calling the trailer an eyesore, a danger. They phoned the city, demanding answers, but the city had none. No permits, no records, as if the trailer existed outside their world. Theories grew wilder, haunted, a portal, a trap. My buddies, Tommy, Jake, Sarah, and I, fueled by summer boredom, vowed to investigate. One night we crept out, flashlights wobbling, the air humid, crickets silent. The lot felt wrong, the ground soft like it breathed. We circled the trailer, its metal cold under my palm, the air thick, resisting our steps. Peering through a cracked window, we saw only darkness, shapes that might have been chairs or might have been more. A low hum pulsed inside, not mechanical, but alive, vibrating in my chest. We ran, our breaths ragged, the trailer's hum chasing us home. I avoided Maple Street after that, its end now a forbidden zone. But the trailer's shadow spread, tainting our games, our sleep. Then came Rudy, a man in his 30s, a few houses down. He was the neighborhood's golden boy. Candy on Halloween, groceries for widows, smiles for all. But his warmth had an edge. Too eager with kids, his invites to play games or watch movies too frequent. Whispers followed him, suspicions without. Proof, a bad vibe no one named. One afternoon I biked past the lot and froze. Rudy stood near the trailer talking to Timmy, an 8-year-old with wide eyes. Rudy's smile was bright, his hand pointing at the trailer like spinning a tale. Timmy's face paled, but he stepped closer, drawn in. My gut twisted. Rudy's charm a hook I didn't trust. See them now? The man's grin a lure. The boy's trust, a thread about to snap. I pedaled home, heart racing, and grabbed my dad, words tumbling out. We ran back, my dad's boots pounding, but the lot was empty, the trailer's door shut tight. "Stay here," he said, his voice steel, and kicked the door open, its hinges screaming. Inside, Timmy sat, tied to a chair, his face wet with tears, his whimpers filling the stale air. Rudy was gone, vanished like smoke. My dad cut Timmy free, his arms shaking, and carried him home. The boy's sobs, a knife in my chest. Police swarmed, their lights flashing, radios crackling. They scoured the trailer, finding junk, rusted cans, torn curtains, and a Polaroid, fresh of Timmy, his eyes wide with fear, taken that day. Rudy was caught hours later, cowering in a shed a mile away, his face blank, his hands empty. The cops pieced it together. Rudy used the trailer as a snare, luring kids with stories, his intent a horror we barely escaped. But the trailer's mystery deepened. Rudy swore he didn't bring it, didn't know how it came. "It was waiting," he said, his voice hollow, like it wanted me to use it. Neighbors shivered, their tales of ghosts now laced with truth. A week after Rudy's arrest, I woke to a strange calm. I biked to Maple Street, curious, and stopped cold. The trailer was gone. No tire tracks, no broken grass, just the lot, bare and silent, as if nothing had stood there. Feel that void, the absence louder than the trailer's presence, its secrets buried deep. The neighborhood tried to forget, lawns mowed, kids playing, but Maple Street's end stayed empty, a scar no one touched. Years later, I learned Rudy confessed to worse, murders, crimes stretching back decades, but he held firm. The trailer wasn't his. It came for him, he said, a partner in his darkness. I drive by that lot now, its weeds taller, its silence heavier. No one's built there, no one will. The trailer's gone, but its hum lingers in my dreams. Timmy's Polaroid, a ghost I can't unsee. The lot a grave for truths we'll never know.